I was recently asked to demonstrate to somebody the knit cast-on. I've never done a video before on the knit cast-on because I thought it was one that everyone knew. But let's start. Take a tail, 6 to 8 inches, or longer if you want longer, though if you do want longer, I always recommend tying it to a butterfly. And make a loop. Cross the over, make a simple loop. This is a slip knot. This is called a slip knot because it slips out. And we're going to take this loop of yarn and we're going to put it on the needle. And we're going to put the needle into our left hand just as if we were knitting. The stitch goes close to the edge. I like to gently hold the tail in the beginning. That way I know I'm not going to inadvertently use it to make a stitch. Stick the needle in just as if you're going to knit. Wrap the yarn around the needle. Pull the stitch out just as if you were knitting. Now once you have the stitch out, turn the needles parallel and pull the stitch onto the needle and snug it up. It sort of looks crossed there. That's pretty normal. So again, stick the needle into the stitch as if you were going to knit. Wrap the yarn around the needle. Pull the stitch out just as if you were knitting. Turn the needles parallel to put the stitch on the needle. And again. Now, this is the basic instructions. However, there's more to it than this, because what happens is you can do this. As you put the needle on here, before you stop, drop the needle below. Now it's already in the stitch. Now gently snug up the stitch, but it's snugged up over 2 needles. Wrap the yarn around the needle, pull the stitch out, put it on, drop below, one smooth motion, knit, pull out, put on, drop below, and that last bit of put the stitch on, drop the needle below makes this cast on go much smoother. You don't have to stop, snug up the stitch, position the needle, and wrap. You make the stitch, pulling it big to get it on. The needle never leaves the stitch until now. So now this needle, this right hand needle stays in the stitch, falls below, it gets snugged up. Because it's snugged up over 2 needles, it's never going to be too tight. Down below, snug, wrap, pull. Put the needle on, put the stitch onto the left hand needle, and the right hand needle is still in the same stitch as you snug it up. And that's not only the knit stitch, but the knit stitch advanced. That extra bit that often isn't shown that makes all the difference in making this a smooth, fast, easy to do stitch cast on that makes it worthwhile. You see how smooth and swiftly it goes, and you never don't worry about pulling it out too much because you're very easily going to slide the needle underneath, snug it up. You never worry about snugging it up because you're snugging it up over 2 needles. And when you're snugging it up over 2 needles, you're never going to make it too tight. And yet, you'll notice it's not too loose either. So that's the knit stitch, or the knit cast on. And it's one that you can use. I don't use it very often, but it has advantages. Let me show you one of the advantages. Well, I'll show you one of the advantages in a later video. That's all for now.